Hi everybody, this is Cameron. Today's video, it's been a really long week. I've got a couple Transformers to review. I think Blaster from Studio Series is going to be next. That'll be a giveaway. But it's been a long week. I just want to record something quick, and I realized I was looking through my video archives. I haven't really talked about the Transformers tabletop role-playing game yet. I played it, so I figured I'd just share some thoughts. I think I'm going to structure it around the core rulebook. Let me just, I guess, let's set some context. I'm going to try and do this as a quick video. Renegade Game Studios came out with the Transformers tabletop role-playing game, I think a year ago now. It came out with two products initially. There's the core rulebook. Since then, they've come out, I think, with two Transformers rulebook supplements and some other stuff, which we'll talk about. And then there was initially the starter adventure. The Transformers A Beacon of Hope starter adventure. The core rulebook has a starter adventure in it also, and I have run that a couple times now for different groups of people to kind of get their thoughts on things as well as getting familiar with the game. So when I'm talking about this, it's not just from reading the book, it is from having some experience about it. Here, in fact, is the core rulebook as a PDF. So I think I'll probably structure my discussion around this table of contents. But we also have, the starter adventure as a PDF, which we'll talk about. I've got some sheets for examples. I've got kind of my session is what I'm going to talk about. I guess this is like my table of contents for the video. I don't know. This is rambling. It's late at night, and I just want to get a video out. So other stuff that they've come out since then that might be great that I can't really talk about. It might be great. It might suck. There's the Decepticon Directive Sourcebook. This lets you play as cons. The core rulebook only does Autobot adventures. There is the Enigma of Combination sourcebook. This lets you play combiner characters or teams of combiner characters. That seems really interesting. Haven't checked that out yet. There are more adventures. There's the Time Is Now, I think, is the next adventure. Catch a Falling Starscream seems like a small adventure. Then they have, Renegade is, the big thing is this is the Essence 20 system. It's essentially, and this might be uncharitable of me, but it's essentially D&D 5th edition light, I feel. It's pretty similar to the way 5th edition runs things. They like to say it's not, but it seems to be pretty similar. And their goal is that you can run games as Transformers fans, as G.I. Joe fans, and as Power Rangers fans, and cross them over into different adventures, plus My Little Pony. They've got a bunch of adventures that are about, fusing the different properties together in multi-universal battles. I don't care about G.I. Joe or Power Rangers. I really just care about Transformers. It's not that I hate G.I. Joe or Power Rangers. I'm just not interested in running those adventures. So I want to make sure I get my biases out on the table so that I am a Transformers fan. I'm approaching this from someone who wants to run Transformers adventures and make them as fun as possible. For my, I guess, credit as a game master, I run games in Dungeons & Dragons. I run them in Cyberpunk Red. I run them in other systems as well, those being the two big ones. I try other things. So I'm not just like a D&D guy. I run all sorts of stuff now. I've been running a lot of games for the past 3 or so years. I successfully complete a lot of campaigns with players. And I tried this out. This is my 3rd time, and I'm not done playing it for sure. So what does Transformers do? I guess, what do I want the Transformers tabletop role-playing game to be? I think there's 2 ways they could have approached this rule set. They could be like, hey, we want to do really crunchy mech combat. There's other systems out there that do that. Lancer is the TTRPG. I haven't played it, but my friend Tom on the channel has played it before. So if they want to go grid-based tight combat, there's Lancer. Not that system, but something similar. Or they could go rules light, where it's like, okay, we want to do the Saturday morning Transformers cartoon adventures. That is great too. They kind of went somewhere in the middle, and that's kind of where my complaints are going to start. But if we're taking a look at this book, the way they introduce and do this context of this rule book is also a source of frustration. The first thing that you really kind of should do if you're designing a character, the book is structured to walk someone through character creation. And I kind of get the idea of like, okay, you have an idea for your character, and then you're going to walk through the different, like, narrow down your character idea. But I think they do things incorrectly where certain decisions are made without context of knowing what that means. For example, everything is based off, it's Essence 20, everything is based off the 4 Essence scores. If we take a look, there's Strength, Speed, Smarts, and Social. Now, some of these stats are really, really important. For example, I believe it is your conditioning stat based off of Strength that determines like extra HP. That's important in the game. Or your speed stat can determine both your initiative and how many actions you get in the game. That is super important. Dumping speed, players have found that it's really unsatisfying if you accidentally dump speed because you don't know that it feeds your action economy, and have had really unsatisfying characters. It's something you learn as you play the game, but that is information that should be communicated up front, and it's not really. That happens over in Chapter 6, and it really should be like part of Chapter 2. If they're discussing character creation, they should talk that through better. Or maybe Chapter 2 and these chapters should be structured in a way, for example, if they're talking about Step 2 being Essence score increases, that should be earlier on. The order of operations I have found makes character creation frustrating for my players. And every time we go through and there's like things that we're figuring out, unlike other games I've played, like Cyberpunk Red, to me has a standout character creation system. It's essentially a flowchart of options of like, okay, here's what happened in your past life and here's how this affects your new life, and then here's the stats. That is fantastic. Transformers, the tabletop RPG, fails to hit that bar, and I'd say it's probably worse than my next worst experience is Pathfinder. And this is nothing against the Pathfinder system, but Pathfinder 2nd Edition just has a lot of decisions you have to make early on in character creation, and if you're new and you don't know the context, it's frustrating. But the information in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is at least, communicated well. In Transformers, I feel like it's not. The things that make up your character. There are your influences, which is essentially your background of your character. It'll be like what you used to do before the war. Were you a sports star? That's like the cube player. Were you a racer? Were you a scientist, like an inventor? Were you in a war previously, a war veteran? Those give you both some positive traits and some negative traits. Let's do one. Let's go to one, for example. Let's check out the hunter or the gladiator. There's the hunter. The art is something that's nice about the book. Like you can see here, Road Rage. But for example, like here is the hunter, and you get some bonds. And you are not limited to one influence. You can have more than one influence. And when you get more than one influence, then you'll get potential hang-ups. So you'll get perks because of your influence. You'll get some potential bonds and characteristics. And if we go down to the hang-ups, it'll list out things that, things that might happen or negative effects of having, after your first influence, you get potentially negative effects. The next thing you pick is your origin. Again, this affects things like your essence score. It gives you additional skills and your starting health. This also determines what your alt mode and size is. So champion, for example, and the nice thing is they give you examples of oh, these are Transformers characters that would be champions. Here they say Blur, Jazz, and Sunstreaker. These are very different characters, but they all kind of fit into the champion archetype. This gives you things like, okay, how big is your robot mode going to be? How big is your alt mode going to be? What type of alt mode are you going to have? So if you're going to be a plane, there's right now in the core rules, right? You're going to be a seeker. If you're going to be a ship, there's one origin that you're going to have, that sort of thing. So you have your background, your origin, which I guess is like your race if you're thinking about it in D&D terms, and then you're going to have your role, and your role is essentially your class. There's different roles. They function pretty differently. They do some unique things that you wouldn't do in a like fantasy RPG. One role is basically just, hey, you get to be 2 origins, the mode master. If you want to be a triple changer, you get to have 2 origins, so you can have 2 alt modes kind of thing. Or that's also how they do micromasters. The roles I felt are pretty good. It is a very fixed class system where once again, I'm going to show an example, the analyst. Okay, the analyst, once you pick it and you're going to be an analyst, then your levels are essentially very fixed. I don't know why they did 20 levels here other than the fact that they're kind of cribbing notes from D&D, and D&D does 20 levels. But you get, a perk every time. There's different perks like, okay, at 4th level, and at 8th level, and at 11th level, you get general perks, which are options to customize your character with a specific perk that you want. Again, like D&D, how they did their feats. And then you get stat boosts and growth in stats in different ways at different levels. And this is all pretty fine. Again, because this book is not really by itself, even though I treat it by itself, it's combined with Power Rangers and G.I. Joe and My Little Pony. There are weird things in the layout and the formatting. For example, role perks. Like they give you these things and you're like, okay, well, if all Cybertronians have this, then why don't I just have this in like my base mode? Why is this for every role? Well, it's because you could be Cybertronian, or you could be human, or you could be a ranger, like they just came out with a Decepticon rule book. So this says every Autobot. Now there's a version for Decepticons, that sort of thing. But yeah, perks are pretty inoffensive. And that's, I think, one of the things is I'll say the game is at its best kind of inoffensive. And if you want to play Transformers, like this is like an okay way to do it. Then we get into essence scores, and here they explain like, okay, here's finally how essence scores work. And oh yeah, don't dump speed. Make sure you have speed, because speed gives you extra actions. Which is very, very important. Except I don't even know they say it here in the rules. I think it might be later on. But anyway, the unique thing about the Essence 20 system, which I like, is the dice shift ladder. So when you roll a skill check, you roll a d20, and then the way you built your character, you get these. Like you can train in certain skills, and then you can specialize in the skill. So for example, like let's say driving, if you're trained in 2 levels of driving, then when you roll your d20, you get to roll a d4 and add it to the number. Or if you are trained at 3 levels, you roll a d20, add a d6. If you're specialized, you get to roll a d20, roll all the level dice in your training, and then add the highest number. So that's unique, and I like it. There's also ways that you shift the dice up and down depending on situations as the game master. I like that. There's abilities that let you shift things up and down. This part is fun, and this makes the moment-to-moment like gameplay pretty fun. Giving edges, it's like what do you call it? Advantage and snags or disadvantage. They're basically just renaming those things. They talk about like, all the things you can do to help each other out. That sort of thing. Then you get into like your perks, and perks have different values. They might have prerequisites. I have found that perks are definitely the thing that you use to customize your character. In the base game, I feel like there aren't enough general perks, but I'm sure that they've added more in each of the new versions of the new like Decepticon and then Combiner rulebook. Now, equipment. This is the single worst part of the game. I hate the way they do equipment. They just, instead of just having equipment that you use, They've used this hardpoint system, and it is not communicated well here. And I've reached out directly to Renegade about, hey, how does this work? And they've written better documents, and it's up on their Discord, but they will not issue an errata. It is super frustrating. It's one of the reasons that I'm so hesitant to run it again, because it makes it frustrating. Every time we start a new mission, there's rules for, okay, you have your normal gear, and then you can requisition and test new gear. This is like this assignment and requisition stuff. I'm going to read this verbatim because it's frustrating. Although Cybertronians have their own currency called Shannocks or credits, we don't use that in the game. I said I'm reading it verbatim. I guess I'm not. Instead, PCs are assigned equipment for missions and allowed to request access to other items. Ideally, every soldier could access every item they feel they need for every task, but that's unrealistic. Resources are tight. The Autobots have to get the most use out of everything they have. When assigned to a mission, you receive a combination of standard issue equipment, but that's not true. What they're really saying is here, hey, you get some gear on you at all times, and that's what they should say, and they should explain that in like a section of this book. Your integrated hardpoint and personal gear, again, that's just gear you have on you. You might collect some of it during adventures. It might be what you have. And then your qualified equipment. Additionally, you are issued a requisition budget. And this is like, there are rules for, there's this table here on like, okay, can I get, what gear can I requisition, and when can I upgrade it? And there's like limits to your loadout and stuff. I'll say this, every time I've run this game, my players have gotten frustrated by the equipment process to the point where I can't run the, like, it's essentially a 2-hour starter adventure in the back of the book. I can't run this starter adventure in one session because I know that character creation is not going to take an hour. It's going to take like 3 hours because we're going to have to figure out equipment every time. It is really frustrating. And this book is missing equipment. Apparently there was some equipment that was only in the G.I. Joe book that the Transformers rules reference. They say like, oh yeah, you can be trained in machine guns, but machine guns aren't in the book as is. That's another point of frustration. Equipment has a bunch of stats. Once you like get loaded out, it's not that bad. But as is, it's frustrating. And there's like, they use keywords badly. So equipment have traits, for example, melee weapon without an energy trait. But then you go into like, you look at what they're doing to describe weapons. Here, weapons, if you notice, energy trait, right? Effects and traits, element, no energy, no energy. There's a, right, this book needs copy editing. This is the type of shit that makes me think that it's kind of a cash grab more than they really care. There's this, I think that should say element, but it doesn't. And again, it's not getting errated because they don't want to spend the money to fix their mistakes. This is getting a little ranty, but I guess this is the mood I'm in. Yeah, so you get equipment and it's split out between how rare it is and limited weapon upgrades. Like, again, that's your requisition budget. You get your stuff sorted out. Eventually, we get into, I guess the next part is just stat blocks for NPCs. Movement. So is this where we talk about combat actions? Let's see, combat actions. How many actions do you get? Okay, movement. Other move actions? No. Here we go. So this is chapter 9, combat. Here is the part where they tell you, hey, guess what? This is your speed essence determines the number of types of actions you take. That's chapter 9. If you're following this as is, you've already created your character and you've already fucked up because you haven't given yourself enough speed to get move, standard, and free actions. It's a simple thing, but it's frustrating. And transforming takes a standard action. So that means that turns that you transform, unless you have certain perks, you can't do anything else. And that's another complaint that I have. It makes things feel tactical, but the core rules don't support those tactics. Let's see, we've seen the dice shift tower. Okay, here's where we talk about size. So in our origins, it was talking to us about what size you get to be. And then they talk about, okay, this is what those sizes mean. And as you're attacking different things of different sizes, it affects your ability to attack them. Basically, it's harder to hit smaller dudes, that sort of thing. And then here they talk about, okay, the map footprint. Here's what the size mean on a map. Let's go to, so here is the Beacon of Hope adventure. This is the starter adventure in the back of the book. I have, in Roll20, I've created this. This is another point of frustration. If you bring out, let's take solder here. So solder is, let's zoom way in. So here is solder, starter character. This is one of my players created this character. You can transform him in Roll20. I set things up this way. And then you got to manually shrink him down to be this size. But this size doesn't super matter, it seems, except for range, because facings don't matter. So if you're not going to create a radially symmetrical size, then facing should matter, but in this game it doesn't. It's a sort of, again, half measure into like, oh, that's kind of tactical, but not really. That's a little frustrating. I recognize that this is going like long for a video, so let me try and wrap things up. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Combat itself is pretty fun. There's skill checks just like in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. There's the adventure at the back of the book. There's a bunch of stat blocks for Decepticons and stuff. There's an index. The back of the book has, this. Troubled Waters is the starter adventure. I've run this a couple times, so it's like all right as a starter adventure, but it's definitely like over-tuned to the point where it's long and frustrating. And these maps are big. Like the size of this map is enormous compared to the size of the player character. Look at this one, Sherman Dam. Here are the Decepticons that are going to be in this map. Look how big this is. And your characters, unless you're all Seekers, you're like needing to drive around this map. It just took forever. By the time we finished the starter adventure, we were kind of bored and the players just kind of wanted to finish it out. And that seems to be the experience every time I check this game out. I haven't run this adventure yet. I still want to. Every time I run it, I kind of build myself up, get a little hyped, get excited, and then we run it, and at the end of it, I'm like, do I want to do this again? And that's where I'm sitting right now. I promised some friends that I'm going to run this adventure. I haven't really been able to work up the energy to set it up yet. This is supposed to be that adventure, the Beacon of Hope adventure, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet because the book isn't as fun as it could be. Here's, for example, like it's just full of frustrations. Here's someone made this character sheet. One of my players made this character sheet. The way they do, right, this is their official character sheet. The way they do perks, like, can you read that? I don't think you can. You just have to jam so much information in different spots that it wasn't made for. The thought and the care that was put into it is frustrating. I have... if you spend extra money, you get like their official character sheet. And here, it is a little better. It's like a character journal, but you shouldn't need a character journal for every one of your characters. And this is literally for one PC. This is not, oh, I can keep all my characters in here. This is, okay, every time I want a new character, then I need a new character journal. And that shouldn't be the way you need to record on paper. This character sheet should be better. The Game Master screen is a little better. The art's nice. Can I get the whole thing in? And it does have helpful tables on it. Running, moment to moment running the game is okay. I bet it's a lot easier to run in person, except for the fact that the paper character sheets suck. Because here's, I guess, the final thing that's super frustrating. Here is a character sheet for a Transformers character in Roll20. If you notice, it says Power Rangers on it, because they never released a Transformers module for Roll20. I don't think, as far as I know right now, there is no official virtual tabletop for the Transformers game. They said they're working on it. It was supposed to come out in Roll20. That deal got canceled. I don't know what happened there. Renegade blames Roll20. Roll20 blames Renegade. Whatever has happened, it means that in Roll20, like, you can't really get things right. Like origins and roles and stuff here. Like, that's not going to be right. The alt mode isn't really right. There's the morphing time button, which I don't even know if that does anything anymore. It doesn't look like it does, so you can't like actually transform. Again, I want to play Transformers. I want to have fun Transformers adventures, but they make it so annoying to do so. And I think it's because they don't care, because they've already gotten their money. But there is fun to be had. I know I've been ragging on it a lot, but like in this original scenario, there's like some fun moments. Like you get to do some skill checks to lower the defenses of this energon plant. Get to the center, see there's like been a bomb planted, and defuse it as you're like driving around and dodging drones and stuff. This middle scenario is probably my favorite. It's a straight up Transformers Saturday cartoon fun. Your characters come across a bridge on the highway that has been destroyed by some Decepticon seekers. How do you get the humans to safety? It's not even about killing Decepticons. It's about being Transformers and being heroes and helping the civilians out. And then the Sherman Dam is like a classic callback to the Decepticons trying to blow up the dam. And then your characters needing to, engage the safety locks and things like that. I had fun overall. Like, I'd say it's like a solid 7 out of 10 experience to run the game. It's just kind of a 4 out of 10 experience to do character creation and deal with the fiddly futzy stuff in order to get the game to the table. And that's really unfortunate. Because at the end of the day, like, having a fun Transformers TTRPG seems like a no-brainer. Of course people will play that. We love Transformers. But as someone who plays TTRPGs, I cannot help but see the cost-cutting measures and the compromises that went into making this a cross-world compatible system. They sacrifice things to make these feel less like Transformers in order to make the G.I. Joe players and the Power Rangers players on the same foot. Instead of letting us be hulking giant robots that kick ass, we have to kind of be on the same level as G.I. Joe characters and and Power Rangers characters, which is a little lame. In addition to that, they also cut costs in terms of the editing of this book. So overall, what am I coming back to? I think this: if you're an experienced TTRPG person and you're willing to put up with less than adequate copy editing, formatting, and game system to play Transformers, check out the Transformers TTRPG. If you want to play mechs and do big mech stuff, check out Lancer. It does that really well. If you want to play giant robots and it doesn't need to be Transformers brand TM trademarked, go check out Command Droids. Ooh, yeah. Let's talk about Command Droids real quick. I played this. There's a live stream of us playing this. Command Droids is a lot of fun. Oh, it's available on Drive-Thru TTRPG. There we go. I have this book. Hannah's sleeping right now, otherwise I'd share it. But this game, to me, captures Transformers better. It is not Transformers registered trademark, but it captures the feel of Transformers better. It's a little more rules light. It's a little more narrative based, but it's a lot of fun. All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out this long. Holy crap, it was half an hour. This was not a fast review. I'm sorry. And I'll catch you all later. Bye.